Hi, my name is Sammy, and today I'll be filming a chit chat get ready with me with how I achieved this look, and I'll be sharing all my language learning tips, especially how I learned Korean. I tried to speak in Korean for the makeup portion, but honestly, I'm gonna put a disclaimer, but let's go! 먼저 파운데이션을 발라줄 건데요. 이거 힌스 세컨드 스킨 파운데이션 이걸로 발라줄 거예요. 이거 피카소 스패츌라입니다. 이렇게 하고 얇게 발라주면 돼요. 이제 Real Techniques 스펀지로 블렌딩을 해줍니다. So some background about me learning Korean. I'm born in Canada, so obviously I speak English, and my parents are from Hong Kong, so I also speak Cantonese fluently. When I was in elementary school in grade 6 was when I first came across K-pop, and then I went into the deep end with watching Korean variety shows and Korean dramas as one does, and that's how I started learning Korean. In high school, I briefly lost interest in K-pop, but I still continued watching shows and stuff like that. I think I've been constantly exposed to the language of Korean in different ways, basically since grade 6 until now. So let's just say for 15 years. 이제 컨실러 발라줄 거예요. 이거 눈 밑에 발라줄 거고요. 이거는 스팟 컨실러로 쓰겠습니다. 또 스펀지로. So from watching so many shows over the years, that's how I learned a lot of the grammar and the vocab. And also at the beginning, I would search up common vocab, common phrases, and also the Korean alphabet, which in my opinion is pretty easy to learn. Oftentimes people will say they want to learn Korean to not have to read subtitles, and that's definitely a plus. I think I've always been into learning languages, and obviously with being interested in Korean culture and watching so much Korean media and stuff, I just naturally really wanted to learn the language. One of my biggest goals is to become fluent in Korean. 블러셔를 발라줄 거예요. Can Make 크림 치크 이런 색깔이고요. 여기랑 아이섀도우로 쓸게요. 블러셔 엄청 좋아해요. I didn't formally learn Korean until I was in university. In first and second year, I took 2 Korean courses. And then after second year, I also did 1 month of exchange at Korea University. But honestly, I didn't really speak Korean while I was there. I was still too shy to be speaking a lot of Korean to Korean people, or just in general. 코에서도 코 끝에랑 여기. 너무 더워요. 이것만 입으면 좀 야한 것 같으니까 제가 좀 쉽게 더위는 사람인 것 같아요. 아무튼 아이섀도우는 대충 할게요. 이 색깔랑 이거 섞어서 파우더 완전 까먹었어요. 파우더는 블러셔 바르기 전에 원래 하는데 완전 까먹었어요. 좀 더 진한 컬러들이랑 섞어서 눈 밑에 아이라이너는 집중을 해야 되니까 바르고 그 다음에 다시 올게요. 두 번째 블러셔는 이거입니다. 홀리카홀리카의 젤리 도우 블러셔. 색깔은 5번 로즈 젤리. 이 로즈한 색깔인 블러셔 요즘 좋아해요. So now for some of my tips for not only learning Korean, but just learning languages in general. First of all, my learning style. I would say I don't retain the information that well from learning in like a formal setting. From my uni course, honestly, I don't really remember anything from those 2 years of taking that class, but I also have like really poor memory. Most of my learning is just from watching so much Korean content, but obviously that won't work for everyone, and also it's much more time consuming. 다음에 컨투어 하겠습니다. 이거 유명한 Too Cool for School 컨투어 팔레트입니다. 이렇게 하고 턱 라인까지. So with that, one of my biggest tips is in your free time, consume as much content in the language that you're trying to learn as possible. So if you're like me and you're trying to learn Korean, then watch as much Korean content as you can. I think you shouldn't force yourself to watch if you don't want to. Watching it is a great way to naturally learn the language because you're just exposing yourself to it so much. Like how people say the best way to learn language is like to live in that place. 이거 며칠 전 샀는데 에뛰드 하우스의 쉐이딩 스틱이에요. 처음이라 좀 걱정되네요. 잘 될지 잘 모르겠어요. 이게 맞나요? 이게 맞는지 모르겠는데 어때요? 괜찮아요? 괜찮은 것 같은데? 원래 방에서 화장을 안 하는데 화장실에서 하는 편이어가지고 Obviously at the start you'll have to watch with subtitles, but I think watching with subtitles is a great way to learn new grammar and vocab. Let me give you an example. Let's say the sentence is 빵집 어디예요? And then you see in the subtitles that means where is the bakery? So let's say you already know the grammar or the phrase 어디예요? That means like where is it? So in that sentence the word that you don't know is 빵집. Then you would be able to come to the conclusion that 빵집 means bakery. And I feel like personally I've been able to remember words so much better that way than memorizing it. You're hearing it in like a sentence and you're not just being bombarded by like a list of vocabulary to remember at once. So I feel like I've learned a lot of random vocab that way from watching Korean dramas. From hearing them talk so much, I feel like you just naturally over time will remember how their sentence structure works. 애교살은 어떻게 잘 그리는지 잘 모르겠어요. 근데 이걸로 너무 퉁퉁한 것 같은데요? 이쪽은? 너무 큰가? 애교살 댓글에 알려주세요. So my next tip is you can't learn a language without practice. And I think ideally it would be best to practice with someone who actually spoke the language. For example, again, if you were living there or visiting and you're speaking with the locals, or if you have a friend that speaks the language and you can talk to them in the language that you're trying to learn, that would be best because they're fluent and they can correct you or guide you. But let's say you don't have any friends that speak the language. There are some other options out there. I know in my city, I do live in Vancouver, so it's a pretty big city, especially with a lot of Asian people. I've seen online that there are meetups between people that want to learn Korean. I've never been because I'm too shy. Part of me wants to go, but maybe one day. There's people that speak Korean and then people that want to learn Korean, and then they come and they just talk and chill, learn from each other. And I think usually the people that are fluent are also trying to learn English, so it's like a mutual language learning experience. Other options are language learning apps, which is basically the same thing except you talk with people online, which I mean there's definitely some sus people that will be on there, but that is an option, especially if you're shy to meet people in person. If you're able to text or type in the language that you're trying to learn, that can be helpful. 에뛰드 하우스 립 라인 오버립 조금 돌려줄게요. 차이 보이시나요? 제가 립 제품들 좀 많이 있긴 한데 제가 좋아하는 립 컴보 없는 것 같아요. 예쁜가요? 투머치인가요? 색깔이 너무 진한 것 같아요. 이제 마스카라를 하겠습니다. One thing with learning languages, you really have to put yourself out there. And if you're like me and you're naturally more shy, more introverted, even just speaking in my native language, I feel that way, especially with having to speak in a language that you're not familiar with and not comfortable with speaking. It can be really intimidating. Over all these years, I've been too scared to speak it in public or with other people. If you're like me, I think one great way for a solution, just talk to yourself. I don't talk to myself out loud like this in Korean like all the time. Honestly, never, because my mom was always home. That would just be weird. I talk a lot to myself in Korean while I'm in the shower, like a whisper kind of way. I just think of a random topic or I pretend I'm talking to someone else about whatever. That's my way of practicing and keeping myself on top of using the grammar, using different vocab and stuff like that. So over the years, that's what I've always done, to the point where now I actually think a lot in Korean, which might be kind of weird because I don't speak Korean. No one around me really speaks Korean, but because I've been learning over so many years, practicing with myself in my own head, a lot of my thoughts don't come to me in English first, actually. Like some thoughts I'll think about in English and then some thoughts I'll think about in Korean. 이 에뛰드 하우스 색소로 쓸게요. 오랜만에 안 쓴 제품인데 좋은 제품인 것 같아요. 이거 쓰면은 속눈썹이 하루 종일 살아있어요. 색깔이 없어요. 그냥 무색. 그 다음에 마스카라. 이거 일본에서 사온 마스카라예요. 이전에 중국 마스카라를 쓰고 있었어요. 그 주디더. 이거 틱톡에서 유명했던 것 같아요. 이렇게 생겼어요. 그래서 쉽게 바를 수 있어요. 그거 너무 오래 쓰다 보니까 바꿨어요. 이거로. 차이점 보이시나요? 마지막에 setting 스프레이하고 highlighter. So once you've built up a certain foundation of basic grammar and vocab, if you want, you can also practice writing. I've practiced writing my Korean as well. Again, I just think of a random topic and then I write it down. It would be helpful if you had a friend or something that could check over your writing. This was the journal that I used. It's lemongrab. I'll just write about random things. That is my practice writing book. And then lately, I've also been using Duolingo every day. I have a streak Duolingo. Everyone knows it. Good language learning app. I haven't tried any other ones, but I just like to do, honestly, the bare minimum. I just do like one lesson every day to keep my streak going. But I think it's better than nothing. It helps with learning new vocab, and because it repeats so much, the new vocab that you learn, it always comes back up, so it's hard to forget it, in my opinion. Even if you're just learning a little every day, it kind of keeps your brain thinking about the language. 이제 메이크업 다 했고요. 머리를 하고 다시 돌아올게요. 이렇게 머리를 다 하고 옷도 갈아입었어요. 머리는 좀 별로인 것 같아요. 다 끝났습니다. So to end off this video, I think for a long time, I was especially kind of hesitant to practice Korean or even say that I was interested in learning Korean because I felt kind of afraid that people would think that I was cringe or Koreaboo or whatever. I think if you honestly want to learn the language, you should just go for it. There's gonna be people out there that might think you're cringe or you don't sound good or whatnot. You should just ignore them and you shouldn't let people like that stop you. I am still on my journey overcoming my shyness. I'm getting better because last year I went to Seoul and I really tried to use Korean as much as possible. For example, during my hair appointment, I talked a bit with my hairstylist, which was nice. Like at any point, ordering food as much as I could, I would try and use Korean, talking to taxi drivers, stuff like that. I think it's great practice. It's not cringe at all to want to learn more about a different culture, learn a different language. In fact, I think locals would really appreciate and feel excited that you're so interested to the point that you want to learn the language. I know, for example, even when people eat Hong Kong food and they really enjoy it, that makes me feel proud of my culture. So don't be ashamed. There's nothing to be ashamed of. Go out there and practice as much as you can. Anyway, these are my language learning tips. I hope that we can all put ourselves out there, get practicing, and one day become fluent in the language that we're trying to learn. Thank you so much for watching. I think I'm gonna try and fix this hair. 다음에 기회가 있으면 다시 한국어만 하는 영상을 찍겠습니다. 혹시 관심 있으면 댓글에 알려주세요. 제 영상이 잘 봤으면 구독 버튼 눌러주세요. Anyways, thank you so much for watching and I will see you next week in another video.